Hi, everybody. Thanks for taking a few minutes to watch my no dieting for folks trying to lose weight and trying to control their blood sugar talk. I appreciate you doing this because otherwise I'd have to have this same discussion 4 or 5 times a week. Please, before we get started, I should have sent you some handouts or links to handouts, and I would love for you to print those out. Should be 3 pieces of paper. One is a note sheet, and I know that's backwards for y'all to read when I hold it up, but one is a note sheet. And then there are 2 nutrition labels. You'll notice there's a number 1 and there's a number 2. So you should have all 3 of those sheets in front of you for use while we're talking. I'm going to give you guys, in what I hope is going to be about 20 minutes, about a half a semester's worth of biochemistry. For those of you that really are scientists, please accept the fact that I am oversimplifying, and I know it, so don't send me hate mail. I know that this is really, really useful stuff, though. These are some very simple tools. I hate dieting. Diet is a 4-letter word as far as I'm concerned. Nobody wants to stay on a diet for long. So I want folks to be able to have some freedom. I just want you to understand how food works in your body. So having said that, let's jump right into this. And so if you'll take your handout sheet as we go, I'm going to follow this so you can take notes on it. When we're all said and done, if you're confused or you weren't able to fill in the blanks, just send me a spruce message and I will send you what my completed version of the handout looks like. Okay, let's start out. If I put a bite of food in my mouth, it's really one of 3 things. It is a protein, it's a fat or oil, or it's a carbohydrate. So by numbers 1, 2, and 3 on your handout, a bite of food is number 1, protein, number 2, fat/oil, or number 3, carbohydrate. And I'm going to use the word carb as a substitute for carbohydrate. So what's a protein? Well, a really disgusting way to think about it is a protein is anything that had a face before you eat it. Or it ran around the earth under its own power is another way to think of it. Or it came from something that did. So for instance, a chicken ran around the earth, an egg comes from a chicken. An egg is a perfect protein, including the yellow yolk stuff in there. Number 2 is fat or oil. What's a fat or oil? I don't have a real cute definition like protein, but it's sort of slick, slimy, oily, greasy. You know it when you see it. You grab Crisco. You know what that feels like in your fingers. It's greasy, feels kind of like lotion, which is a fat. If you took olive oil and ran that through your hands, you know what that feels like. So those are fats. Oils are fats that are liquids at room temperature. You cut that edge off of a pork chop, that spongy white stuff, you know that's fat when you see it. You eat a bite of chocolate cake, it's moist and delicious. That's not from milk or water, that's from fat or oil. So fats and oils. Now, just as a side note, when I was in med school 30 years ago, we were trained fats are awful, low-fat diet is the only way to go, that's heart smart, it's heart healthy. It turns out a lot of what they taught us was wrong. There are truly some bad fats, but most of them are out of our food chain now. So I'm not anti-fat, I'm not scared of fat the way I was trained to be years and years ago, and I don't want you to be either. The last thing, number 3, is carbohydrate. So what's a carbohydrate? Well, it's really anything that's not a protein and not a fat. So this messes with your head a little bit sometimes. So let's do a thought experiment. I hold in my hand a sweet potato, and I ask myself, did that thing run around the earth under its own power? No, so it's not a protein. Is it slick, slimy, oily, greasy? No, so it's not a fat. All that's left is carbohydrate. And guys, for the rest of our time together, whether it's this lecture or whether you're seeing me in clinic, if I use the word carbohydrate, the word I really want you to hear is sugar. Carbohydrate and sugar are going to be the same word. If you think of a drawing of a chain, or think of a chain, that would be a carbohydrate. Now think about if I took each one of the links of the chain off. Those links of the chain are actually little sugar molecules. The really amazing thing about carbohydrate, when you swallow carbohydrate, your body starts to break it down into the links of the chain and forms it into a sugar your body can use called glucose. 70 to 75% of that carbohydrate that you swallowed gets saved around your belly as belly fat. About 15 to 20% gets saved around your muscles in a form called glycogen, and the rest gets burned up for your heart to beat and your mouth to move and assorted movements of that nature. So carbohydrate and sugar are the same word. Sugar has some uses in your body, but I want you to remember that 75% of it gets saved as belly fat. So let's go back to the sweet potato. We know it didn't run around the earth, so it's not a protein, or didn't come from something that did, not a protein, not slick and slimy, so it's not a fat or an oil. All that's left is sugar. So am I really going to tell you that this organically grown sweet potato is a sugar? Yes, I am. They even put sweet in the name to make it easy for you. But let's do another example. This should really mess with your head a little bit. I hold in my hand this beautiful green pepper, still in the wrapper. Did that thing run around the earth? No, not a protein. Is it oily or fatty or slick slimy? No, it's not a fat. All that's left is sugar. Am I telling you that this beautiful green vegetable is a sugar? Yes, I am. It is a carbohydrate. Now, don't turn off the computer yet and don't panic. We love these green vegetables, but not all carbohydrates are created equally, and you're going to see why in just a few minutes. All right. I told you that 70+% of all the carbohydrate that you swallow gets saved as belly fat. We really would like to know two things. One, how do I lower my blood sugar? And two, how do I lower the amount of belly fat that I'm carrying around? One last little biochemical tidbit that we need to talk about is a hormone called insulin. Insulin is secreted by the pancreas. Pancreas is about this big, about 2 fingers wide. It sits just below the stomach, and anytime I swallow sugar, carbohydrate, my pancreas goes, oh my gosh, he's eaten carbohydrate again, let's crank out some insulin. Why is that? Well, if you have any friends that have what's called type 1 diabetes, their body no longer makes insulin. And so you probably know that their blood sugars tend to stay very, very, very high, dangerously high if it's not treated. So insulin goes out into the bloodstream, grabs these sugar molecules, and hauls them off to the fat cells and says, all right, you guys, you got to get out of the bloodstream because you're causing trouble there. Let's store you away as fat in the fat cells. So that's the primary role of insulin, is to lower the blood sugar. But insulin has another role that is very, very important for our purposes, and that is that insulin pulls guard duty on the fat cells and won't let the fat out so that I can burn it up as energy and get rid of my belly fat. The big biochemistry term for that is really snooty sounding. It says that insulin is the primary inhibitor of lipolysis. Well, lipolysis means the breakdown of fat, and inhibitor means the blocker. So right here on your form, I've got insulin, blank, 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 and what I'd like for you to write down is that insulin blocks fat release. So we need to keep our insulin levels low. And what is it that makes insulin levels get up there and get high in the first place? Well, it's us swallowing carbohydrate. So I need to show you how you can use nutrition labels, and don't roll your eyes at me like that. I know they're not interesting, but they're going to be really cool. You're going to see in just a second. I need you to understand how to use a nutrition label, how to read it in less than 5 seconds, and get really useful information out of it. So before I jump quite into that, I want to show you a math problem. The next thing on your handout is a math formula. And the math formula says blank minus blank minus blank equals net carbs. In that first blank, I want you to write these words. Total carbs, total carbohydrate. That goes in the first blank. The next blank is going to say fiber or dietary fiber. So now our math problem says total carbs minus fiber. And in the third blank, I want you to write minus sugar alcohols. So our total math problem is total carbs minus fiber minus sugar alcohols is equal to net carbs. And that's measured in grams. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I don't think in the metric system. So for something to be 40 grams doesn't really mean anything to me. But I know what teaspoons of sugar look like because I've got a sugar bowl by my coffee pot and I've got a spoon in it. So I can imagine if filling my teaspoon up with sugar and putting that in my mouth. I know what that would look and feel like. So I'm going to show you a little trick here on the next line. It says net carbs divided by blank equals blank. Here's what I'd like you to write there. Net carbs divided by 5, so put 5 in there, is equal to net carbs in teaspoons of sugar. Bear with me. I know this sounds complicated, but I'm going to show you just how easy this is in a second. All right, net carbs divided by 5 is equal to net carbs in teaspoons of sugar. All right. Take your very first nutrition label. It's got the number 1 down here at the bottom. Now, I want y'all to be able to read this in 5 seconds or less. And there is way, way, way too much information there to read every line. So let me show you how we're going to do this. And again, I apologize. I know when I hold it up, it's backwards for you, but you'll get the gist. See right there in the middle, there's this dark black line. I want you to take a pen and put an X below the dark black line. That's all this information on vitamins and iron. You don't ever have to read that. We frankly just don't care. And the reason why we don't care is because one of the things I want you to do is take a complete multivitamin every day. Make sure that it says complete. That means it's going to have things like zinc, copper, and manganese in them. And a complete multivitamin. All right, now we only have to deal with this much information. And all that I care about on this much of the form is at the very top where it says serving size, and down here where it says total carbohydrates. So it says total carbs, dietary fiber, sugars, and other carbohydrate. Circle all of that and circle serving size. That's all we care about on here. So now let's see if we can fill in the blanks of our math formula out here. Total carbohydrate for this example, and by the way, this example is Special K cereal because people love to tell me that Special K is a great way to lose weight. Why do they tell me that? Because they've got a great marketing department at Kellogg's. But let's take a look here at the truth. Total carbohydrates says 23 grams. So that's the total carbs part of our formula. And so just out to the side here, I'm going to do a math problem. I'm going to write it out here and show you how I do this. I'm going to say 23. The next part of my formula is fiber. If I look down here, dietary fiber is less than 1 gram. Well, let's give them credit for 1, so we'll have some math to do. Minus 1. Sugar alcohols. There are no sugar alcohols in here. So the next part of the formula is 0. 23 minus 1 is 22. And that's how I've done it right here. 23 minus 1 minus 0 is 22. 22 divided by 5 is equal to 4.4 teaspoons of sugar. 4.5 teaspoons of sugar, essentially. Now, that's in 1 cup. So if I eat 1 cup of Special K, I might as well have walked over to my sugar bowl and put the spoon in my mouth full of sugar 4.5 times. Doesn't sound like a good idea. Something on these labels that always trips people up, where it says total carbohydrate, dietary fiber, and just below that it says sugars. So frequently I'll ask people, how much sugar is in that? And they'll look there where it says sugar and tell me 4 grams. That's a lie. That's the amount of added sugar. So those 4 grams are included in the total carbohydrate number. Only numbers on here that you need are total carbs, fiber, and sugar alcohols. Okay? A nasty little marketing trick is that if I make a food and I don't add sugar to it, then I can put 0 grams there under sugars. And not only that, I can advertise my food as sugar-free. But that's a big, big lie most of the time. I've seen sugar-free cake that if I actually ate it, I was eating 8 teaspoons of sugar per slice. So when you see something that says sugar-free, you better read the label and do the math. It's a problem. So I want y'all to be able to do this really fast in your head. Let me show you how I would do this in the grocery store. I would pull out the side of the box, find my nutrition information. My eyes go straight to here. I'm talking about 1 cup of Special K. Down here, I would look at carbohydrate. I'd say 23 and 1. 23 minus 1 is 22. That's about 20. 20 divided by 5 is 4. So there's a little more than 4 teaspoons of sugar in a cup. That's all I want to know, just that fast. I mentioned sugar alcohols just for the sake of completeness. The only time you're going to see sugar alcohols is if you're doing a diet food, like an Atkins bar. In fact, this second handout that I gave you is an Atkins bar. And you'll notice at the bottom, Atkins does a great job of saying what their net carbohydrates are. You can trust this number for Atkins products. Over here is in this block of information, I've given you some information about sugar alcohols so that you'll know them when you see them. And that's all we need to say about that right now. If you have questions, we can talk about that in person. So I've shown you how to convert grams into teaspoons of sugar so that now, for the next week or two, I want you to look up the foods that you're eating. Either get the information off the box, off the package, or get it online. If you're eating at a restaurant, that information's available online. Having said all that, now we're trying to lose weight or get our diabetes under control. How are we going to do that? Well, my goal for you is 15 teaspoons of sugar per day. I call that 15 sugar bucks. You get 15 sugar dollars to spend every day. Where you spend them is entirely up to you. If you don't like doing the conversion into teaspoons of sugar, for me, that's just an easy way to visualize what I'm about to eat. But if you don't want to do the math, that's fine. Just know that you get 75 grams of net carbohydrate per day. That's total carbs minus fiber. You get 75 grams a day. 75 divided by 5, that's 15 teaspoons of sugar. If you'll do that, I anticipate that you'll lose between a half a pound and 2 pounds a week on average. There'll be some weeks where you don't lose anything. There'll be some weeks are much better than others, but on average between a half a pound and 2 pounds a week. At the bottom, I've written some guidelines for you. The first one is just a rule of thumb, and it's this: if it's carb and it's white, it's not right. So what are some famous white carbohydrates? Well, I know I showed you a sweet potato a minute ago, and a sweet potato is orange on the inside, but it counts just like a plain old white potato. So potatoes are famous for being white carbohydrates. Bread, or anything else that's made with flour. It doesn't matter if it's got seeds all over it, if it's brown or black, if it's whole grain, multi-grain, doesn't matter. If it's made with flour, it's a white carb and it's trouble. Noodles, white carb. Rice, white carbohydrate. Down here in the South, grits, white carbohydrate. And of course, sugar. Guys, if you have a cup full of these white carbohydrates, the rice, the grits, the potatoes, the bread, the noodles, that's the equivalent of about 8 teaspoons of sugar per cup. So if it's carb and it's white, it's not right. Am I saying don't eat it? No, I'm just telling you that's where your sugar bucks for the day are going, right there into those white carb servings. Number 2, keep breakfast less than 1 sugar buck, less than 5 grams. So for breakfast, you could have 3 eggs with some cheese and some sausage or bacon or ham or chicken or leftover meatloaf. You could have some coffee, and you would still be less than 1 teaspoon of sugar. That's a lot of food and still less than 1 teaspoon. Let's talk a little bit about fruit. Because again, not all carbohydrates are created equally. Remember I told you this green pepper is actually a sugar, it's a carbohydrate, but it is so full of fiber that the green vegetables, we love these things. Green veggies rock. Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cabbage, kale, collards, green peppers, green pole beans, lettuce. If it's green and it's crunchy, it rocks. I know it's white, but cauliflower counts like broccoli. When it comes to fruit, fruit is a little bit tricky. There are 3 categories of fruit, and so I'd like for you to write this on the side. When it comes to fruit, number 1, berries are best. The reason why is that all the fiber is in the seeds and in the skin, so you're getting lots of fiber. So berries are best. Number 2, come fruits where you eat the peel. So apples, pears, peaches, if you don't cut the fuzzy skin off. You're not eating seeds, but you're getting fiber in the peel. An apple about this size, about like a baseball, is 3 to 4 teaspoons of sugar. The worst fruits are the tropical fruits. If you don't eat the peel and you don't eat the seeds, like in mangoes, papayas, and bananas, you're looking for trouble. So an average banana is 5 to 7 teaspoons of sugar. Melons are not so bad. You're really not getting a whole lot of anything in a melon. So look them up before you eat them, but a half a cup to a cup of melon is usually not a big deal. Citrus fruits like this orange are pretty good because there's so much fiber on the inside. So this small orange is going to be something like 1.5 to 2 teaspoons of sugar. But guys, juice is the devil. Fruit juice, nobody needs it, not even children. If I have this fruit juice, the serving size is 1 cup. And if my math is correct, well, there's 26 grams of total carbs and there's no fiber. 26 is about 25 divided by 5, so there's a little more than 5 teaspoons of sugar in 1 cup of orange juice. So, I'm not saying don't drink it. I'm just saying if I drink 1 cup of this, I've just blown through 1/3 of my sugar buck budget for the day. I think that's probably a good place for us to stop. I'm looking forward to talking to you in person about this, and I appreciate you hanging out for this movie. And any questions, send me a spruce. Take care. Be safe out there.